For those that don't know, my name is Dean Bowles.
Hi, Dean.
And well, and hello. And anyways, glad to see. Good. Oh my gosh, 75 people. This is fantastic. So I'm, how you like, is that type of swim meet that takes place in Etobicoke, Janet Morrison? Is that what you got going? A little dog paddle going on? Just checking that out.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Fantastic. Anyways, we won't delay this much more. A little bit of back and forth and running this piece, but I think we'll get to it. We got a lot to cover tonight. And a quick look at the agenda. I'm going to introduce Andy in 1 second. We have, obviously most are aware that Swimming Canada and its service provider, more the service provider was hacked and attacked, and which caused all the issues with all the things that we look forward to using the RTR and conducting our business. We'll do a few little things on that. Then we're going to have a great presentation from the Sash Bear Foundation. Welcome, Lynn. Welcome, Brittany, and welcome, Doreen. And I'll introduce you a bit further down there. And then we'll walk through. We've got Leslie Ann from Durant Barristers with us to go through a little bit on the club manual and the update on that. And then a club mentorship pilot project and a little bit on provincial programming. So full night. And Andy, most people are probably getting to know Andy. He's been at swim meet after swim meet after swim meet. And so welcome, Andy, and you're the president of Swim Ontario, and I'm sure you have a few words for us.
Well, thank you very much, Dean. And first, let me thank each of you for attending tonight. These meetings are an important opportunity to share information, learn about new initiatives, and generally stay in touch. As you and your teams are aware, and as Dean alluded to, Swimming Canada has been impacted by a cyber attack on one of its third-party vendors. Later in the meeting, staff will be providing an update regarding this event. I would like to thank each of you for your patience in dealing with this situation. I know it has caused additional work, particularly for coaches, meet managers, registrars, and official coordinators. I'd also like to take a moment to thank the Swim Ontario staff for their efforts in helping develop and inform our clubs about the various workarounds necessary to continue with meets, registration, learning, etc. Countless hours have been invested to date, and we have managed to keep the ship afloat. Also, I need to thank the Swimming Canada staff for their efforts in responding to the situation and in helping the provincial sports organizations across the country. For everybody, it has not been an easy few days. Now, reporting more generally, as president, and as Dean mentioned, as an official volunteer, I have taken the opportunity to be on many decks over the last 6 months. I have had a chance to attend meets hosted by various clubs at numerous venues. I've had a chance to talk to coaches, officials, administrators, and to watch hundreds of our swimmers. From this experience, I offer two anecdotal observations. First, that the sport of swimming remains strong in Ontario. I say this not only based on the rebound of our registration numbers, but also from what I observe. The smiling, excited 9-year-olds scurrying to the spectator area to tell their parents about the personal best they just swam. The 12-year-old who, despite great trepidation, swam a distance event that earlier had seemed insurmountable to them. Or the 15-year-old whose teammates have rallied around them after a difficult race. Swimming continues to achieve one of its primary objectives, teaching our young people life skills that will positively shape their adult lives, and teaching values of hard work, perseverance, and striving to be the best that they can be. The business of swimming continues to face challenges in a post-COVID world, many of which are on the agenda tonight. The vulnerability of our technology, the challenge of mental wellness, the obstacles of hosting meets with fewer volunteers and increasing costs, aging venues, and the challenge of conveying best practices across more than 100 clubs with constantly changing administrators, boards, and swimmers. Most of all, what I've seen these past months is how special the swimming family in Ontario is. I am proud to be part of it, and I am thankful for the kindness and generosity of those I get to work and volunteer with. You are all very special people. So over to you, Dean, to start the formal agenda.
Great. Thanks, Andy. And yeah, you introduced the unfortunate piece that took place last week, and it impacted Swimming Canada and impacted all of us across the country. You realize how important the data is. You realize how important the manner of things are. And I think you, all of you, or at least presidents, would have received a notification from Swimming Canada around 2 o'clock today. Pretty much, we've been in touch with Swimming Canada every day, multiple times during the day. And staff has been working closely with them to go to the next step. And so before I turn it over to Nicole, because she is very close to the mechanics of how things are going to roll. A little bit old school. We still haven't had to rely on the fax machine. So anyways, that's a good sign. One of the things is that they've been fortunate. Things look better than what they thought last week. And I think things are looking that they can get a repair or a rebuild. I'm not sure what the technical word is, but they should be able to get back up and running in the next, I'll give them a month. We got to remember February is a short month. But by beginning of March, we should be able to, do and conduct our business that we're used to. So that's really what I'm going to open with. I think Nicole has just a few guidelines. Each day is going to be more and more coming to you, and just have to, have to manage during this time. So, Nicole.
Hi, everyone. So as Dean alluded to, we sent out a communication today with respect to what the next steps are with Swimming Canada. We've implemented late last week interim swim meet processing. That's been communicated to all the clubs, and it's well underway. Swimming Canada it does now have their events page is now operational, so clubs can see what meets are upcoming. They can download meet packages and event files and follow the interim meet process to submit their entries and run their meets and then submit their results. So that's all underway. So all of the previously sanctioned meets have all been processed through our interim process, and they're now being populated onto the Swimming Canada's events page. It's taking a little bit of time. I think they got through mid-February, and hopefully tomorrow they'll populate the rest. And then all of the new sanctions that have also come in are now under the new process, and they're starting to show up on that events page that Swimming Canada has. Yesterday, or actually early today, we received the interim registration process for swimmers. We've had meetings all day today, and we've come up with a plan. So the plan is to email that out to the clubs tomorrow. It will include how to register returning swimmers, new swimmers, how to manage upgrades as well as transfers. So all of those questions that everyone has been sending, we will have those answers tomorrow. We'll ask you to carefully read that interim registration process for swimmers. And begin implementing it at your end, and then we will do our best to get swimmers registered and into swim meets as quickly as we can. So on the previous slide, I had all the links, but this is just the key links. We will keep you updated on what's happening when Swimming Canada puts out a communication regarding their third-party service provider cyber attack. We will make sure that it is posted on that particular page. We will continue to update the sanctioning process if we see that something needs to change, and that link will never change. The events page will not change either. And then we'll be adding tomorrow, we'll be adding that registration interim procedure. So we just wanted to make a statement regarding all of this. And basically, we just wanted to give everyone a reminder that as we work all together to continue our programs with a reduced infrastructure using all of these interim processes, that Swim Ontario will trust that all the clubs and registrants will do everything possible to manage their affairs within both the letter and true spirit of Swim Ontario and Swimming Canada policies and procedures. We all want what's best for the athletes in the sport. Please take the time to ensure anyone involved in managing or assisting with these interim systems are familiar with the expectations of the Code of Conduct and where to direct any concerns they may have. Dean, that's it for me if you wanted to.
Excellent. I know there was one question there, and I'll just quickly say that they weren't after the swimming stuff. It was just an attack on the provider. That's the way we understand it. We may not get the full story because it's not fully our business. Swimming Canada is working with their cyber crimes individuals and agencies and insurance and things like that. So they're trying to be, quite conscious of how to manage this during this period of time. But as I said, there is a bright light, I believe, from what I understand, that once they settle into all the things that just Nicole just described, that they will be in a rebuild repair point that we can start to see us being back to where we were prior to January 16th. So thanks very much. So here we go. I think this is the point where I introduce Brittany McLean. Hopefully some of you remember Brittany McLean, one of the top best swimmers in the country from about, I'm going to say 2009 through to 2016 or thereabouts, and Olympian, bronze medalist at the Olympics. Probably Etobicoke's best cheerleader. If I remember all those days, Brittany, for Etobicoke swimming and Canadian swimming all along. So Brittany is with us tonight. Lynn Curry is with us tonight. She's somewhat of the starter of this foundation. I'm sure that we'll get a little bit to that story there. And then Doreen Hyman is going to be doing a presentation. So this is interesting. Tomorrow's is Let's Talk. It's Bell's Let's Talk day. And it is, and Mike, sorry, I see you there, Mike. Sorry, I caught you there. I was looking for him. Oh, okay, where's Mike? So Mike and Lynn are Sasha's parents. So yeah, tomorrow is that Let's Talk Bell's Let's Talk. I think we all know it's been tough going for many people over the last little while. But I think I sat in and listened to the presentation in Etobicoke back in the fall, and it really opened my eyes and ears to become more aware. And the tips and the little tidbits that they can help to make life better, perhaps for coaches, perhaps for parents, but definitely for the kids. That's the big thing. So I'm not going to talk much more. I'm going to turn it over to you, Brittany, and very pleased to have the Sash Bear Foundation individuals with us tonight. Fantastic. And go to it, Brittany.
Thank you, Dean. And yeah, I appreciate the introduction. Good evening, everyone. It is great to be here to join you. Yeah, to give you some background on how I'm involved with Sash Bear and why this is important to me. I was Sasha's teammate. We got to swim together at the Etobicoke Swim Club. And I too have had my own journey with mental health. And I think through Sasha's story and through so many different athletes that I've come across and their stories, it's important to continue sharing them. It's important to continue talking about them. And I think the awareness piece is so vital because, you know, anyone, and again, the team representing Sasha Bear will speak to this more, but Sasha was the brightest light in the world, and she continues to be. And I think sometimes people that you least expect it are struggling. And that was something that I definitely experienced. As Dean mentioned, I am the loudest on the pool deck. I am the most outgoing human you might meet. I am a little bit too much for most people, but I also have suffered from depression and anxiety. And I think one of the things that has helped me is just normalizing it, to have conversations, to be able to be aware that you are never alone. You are not alone. But I challenge you all as you listen to the Sasha Bear presentation to understand, similar to coaching and similar, I'm sure I can't speak as I'm not a parent yet, but what I've heard in parenting is that it's not about making these massive, unrealistic strides. It's just about taking small steps in the right direction. And there's so many different maybe biases or thoughts that enter our heads on a daily basis, but if you can kind of just be a little bit more aware of your actions, maybe a little bit more aware of the approach you take with those actions and how we can better support the youth. That is our athletes, that is our sons and daughters, that is the future leaders of tomorrow. And of course, we've seen so much tragedy over the last few years, but through swimming, I have seen the most beautiful things. And I think this community is unbelievable. And I have had the chance to truly meet my lifelong best friends and travel the world and experience some amazing things. But it wasn't just the highs, and it wasn't just easy, and it wasn't just this smooth sailing. And I work in Olympic sport now. I work at the Canadian Olympic Committee, and in that role, I see a lot of examples on the safe sports side of how we can be better as a system and how we can continue to grow in this space. So all I wanted to say was that just kind of share a personal anecdote and be a friendly face in front of you to know, there are so many safe places to have these discussions. I would encourage these conversations, whether it is with your club, with your coaching, with your staff, with your parents, and obviously lean on help. And help is Sasha Bear. That is a first step, and that is some people that are there to support you and to share in that journey. And it's not rocket science. It's not about completely uprooting what you're used to, but just being a little bit more aware of the actions you're taking and how it may affect people. I'll end with this. I think one of the things that my parents did that I was so grateful for is they put me as their daughter first and their athlete second. And I had the biggest Olympic dreams. If you met me when I was a little 10-year-old, I told you I was going to the Olympics. That was all I ever wanted. And I lived by them, and I believed in them, and I put every ounce of myself into them. But as you can hear, that I put so much pressure on myself that all of these other external factors were a continuing piling up weight. And something that I really appreciated was, probably 2 months before my second Olympic Games, I came home one night and I was upset. I had nagging injuries. I had had a hard day. And my mom, I think I was even brought to tears. And yes, this was that point. I was like 22 years old, but I was visibly upset, and I was in a darker place. I wasn't myself at the time. And my mom knew it. And I always think parents know before you even know yourself, but she knew it. And I came to my bedroom and I was upset, and she came into me and said, "Why don't you just quit?" And it sounds ridiculous because I was about to leave for the Olympic Games and it was my lifelong dream to go to the Olympics. But I think instilled in that comment, and it's not that I want you to make that comment to anyone, but I think I learned that day that I was so much more than the Olympian to my mom. I was just her daughter that she saw struggling, and I was just someone that needed maybe a hug or a friendly face. And my initial pounce back was, of course not, Mom. I want this more than anything I've ever wanted. And then we worked on strategies to help me kind of get through it. And I think that it was one of those aha moments. Same with, honestly, when I was after my Olympic Games, I won this Olympic bronze medal, and I was at this high, but I was incredibly ill. I had not done the results I wanted to. And I had this upset kind of dichotomy that I was trying to accept that I had achieved a lifelong dream at the same time that I was actually really upset with my performances. And I called my mom one day and I remember being on the phone with her. I held my bronze medal and I just felt this sense of emptiness. And I told my mom, I said, Mom, I think I need help. And she said, I know. Um, and it was just so powerful because, you know, she wanted to be that shoulder for me, but she also knew that I had to kind of come to terms with what I was dealing with on my own at the same time. So she definitely was a person I leaned on, and it's always been an open conversation in my household. My family is very accepting, not that it's a comfortable chat to have all the time, but it's a place that I know that is safe if I need to come to. So whether for you that's you know, that family, or maybe it's a good set of friends, or maybe it's one of your kind of role models that you can turn to. But I challenge, you know, whether you are the role model or are doing the inspiring, that you kind of look both ways in that relationship and make sure that you're able to have those discussions and move that needle forward. But as Dean mentioned, tomorrow is Bella's Talk Day too, which is great. I know I personally have been working from a work perspective on a story that'll be kind of launched tomorrow with one of our Olympic athletes. And I think tomorrow is going to be a day, whether you agree with the sentiment, I can't even get into the corporate side of things, but all I want is that it's sharing the messages of mental health. And so I encourage all of you, whether you read a new story or share your own story to someone new tomorrow. But yeah, I've already talked too long. I just want to say thanks for providing me the space, and of course to continue these conversations moving forward. Thank you.
Okay, I think it's over to you, Doreen. I think you've got the ability to
Alright.
drive.
Okay, so I have a few slides to share, so let me do that. And please let me know, everybody, if you're having trouble hearing me or seeing the slides. So first of all, I really want to thank you all for being here, for giving us the time in your agenda. As has been mentioned, this is a really important topic. And for those of us at the Sash Bear Foundation, it is really near and dear to our hearts, of course. And we're so excited to be here to be able to tell you a little bit more about what it is that we do. So first of all, I would just like to mention that, yes, Lynn, Corey, and Mike Menu are here. They're the co-founders of the Sash Bear Foundation. And if you are not aware, they're the parents of Sasha Menu Corey, who was an Olympian on her way to becoming an Olympian. She was an Olympic track swimmer. I think that's the phrase that you would use. And she was a swimmer at Etobicoke Swim Club, and then is on scholarship at Missouri. And Sasha died in 2011, before she made her Olympic dreams come true. She died by suicide. She struggled with her mental health. And in 2011, it simply became too much for her to bear. And so Lynn and Mike at that point really had to do some introspection, of course, as anyone would in that situation. And what they learned as they learned more about what Sasha had been dealing with and how she struggled was that they learned that everyone around Sasha had a role to play, and everyone around anyone who is struggling has a role to play in their recovery. That it is in fact possible to play a role in their recovery and help make things better for them. And in very difficult situations, these kinds of changes might even save lives. So Lynn and Mike founded the Sash Bear Foundation. At that point, they chose to turn Sasha's tragedy and their family tragedy into a situation of hope for other families. And so I'm here now as part of the Sash Bear Foundation. I and my family have benefited from what Lynn and Mike created in the Sash Bear Foundation. I first came to them when my child, who started to struggle at the age of 11, my child was about 16 at the time that I came to the Sash Bear Foundation, and I signed up for one of their family programs, and it made such an incredible difference in my life and in the life of my child and in the way that we functioned as a family. And so I became involved and became an ambassador for Sash Bear. And so I want you to understand that connection, that there is so much hope in what it is that they've created here. So I want to mention just a little bit more about the foundation itself. We represent a program that's called Family Connections across Canada. All of our work has to do with the concept of building greater strengths to support people who have mental health issues. Family Connections is a program that was designed specifically for family members. And it's to help family members dealing with emotion dysregulation or borderline personality disorder, which was the diagnosis that Sasha had. It's a program that's very helpful for family members of youth who are struggling with other issues as well, not exclusively borderline personality disorder. The foundation has brought this program so far to over 7,000 Canadians. We operate the program across the country in both languages, French and English, and it is always provided free to participants. Beyond that particular program, which is kind of really the flagship program, and that's an international program that we have oversight for in Canada. But beyond that, the Sash Bear Foundation also does a lot of work raising awareness and providing education around the concepts of emotion dysregulation, suicidality, and general mental health since Sasha's death in 2011. So some of these things that we do are, I just want you to know the breadth and depth of what it is that we do, and maybe you can see where you can see these being important in your own lives or related to what you do in your clubs. The Expert Education Series is something that we offer, a series of monthly webinars provided by expert international psychologists in the fields where our interest lies. For example, we have recorded presentations on the issues of youth and substance use, self-harm, suicidality, and different comorbidities or other co-occurring disorders. So if someone suffers from obsessive compulsive disorder or other issues like that, we probably have a presentation on our website that covers that topic, and also some really excellent presentations there on just how family members can communicate with someone who is struggling. We do presentations at conferences, both here in Canada and around the world. We do talks in community centers, at swim clubs, in workplaces, in schools, pretty much anywhere that there are people who are struggling with mental health issues or concerned about mental health issues. You can find us, or we would like to be there. And then another piece I want to talk about really in a little more depth is our annual walk. This is a mental health awareness walk. It happens every year in May or June. It's kind of expanded because the locations have expanded. We used to do this in only Toronto. The walk first started in 2013. And last year, we had 5 different cities, which was a great way to come back after the pandemic and finally be able to have in-person walks. So 5 different locations, hundreds of attendees, and really what we want to focus on when we talk about the walk is that it's about bringing people together to support the whole idea that we are in this together, that when someone is struggling, it's not necessarily that they should be struggling alone. And that as Brittany mentioned, we want to make sure that our youth, when they're struggling, that they feel comfortable talking to their family members or talking to their coaches, that they have someone trusted in their life that they can speak to about these things. And so Lynn and Mike's vision of bringing everyone together, reducing the stigma, raising the awareness, and increasing the conversations that we have around these issues was really the germ of what became the Sash Bear Walk. And really it's about showing not only that we're in it together, but that we're on the same side, because it's so easy, especially when youth are struggling, that they feel like we're not on the same page that they are. And so we really want to be able to emphasize that. So this was the walk in 2018, a few years ago, and Brittany should probably recognize herself in here. That year, there were 4 Olympians who knew Sasha and came together to support the work of the Sash Bear Foundation at the Sash Bear Walk. And Brittany and her sister Heather have been involved in so many ways in supporting what we do. More recently, this was last year's walk in Toronto at the Toronto location, and the Etobicoke Swim Club supported us at that walk as they had in previous years. These are some of the volunteers, some of the youth who swim with the club and with their coach, Coach Brett. They came and volunteered to help out, to raise awareness, to help make the walk run smoothly. They helped with first aid. They helped with all kinds of things. And it was so great to see youth there in this way. So that was last year's walk. I'm going to put in a plug right now for this year's walk in Toronto. The Ontario Walk happens in Toronto. This year it will be Sunday, May 28th. And it's at Sir Casimir Zowski Park, which is on the Lakeshore and Windermere, down right down by the lake in Toronto. But we also have the walks across the country, as I mentioned. So Surrey, BC, Edmonton, Alberta, Montreal, Quebec, and St. John's, Newfoundland. And we have a virtual walk where people can celebrate with us and support us as well. So there are so many ways to become involved, and we want to let you all know that we welcome your involvement and participation in that event. So moving on to what it is that we do specifically, this idea of people who are dealing with emotion dysregulation, and that can show up in so many ways. We all get emotionally dysregulated at one time or another. For some people, it becomes more of a chronic or pervasive issue, and they're quite consistently and regularly emotionally disabled or dysregulated. Sometimes it's about simply being part of another condition, like Brittany mentioned, anxiety and depression, and that is a form of emotion dysregulation. So this idea that we can connect with somebody and help them understand that we can really understand what they're going through, or that we are willing to try really hard, that we're on the same side as them, and that we want to support them in a way that allows them to build that relationship with us and not push us away, because that really is the key here. And so this idea of being able to connect emotionally with somebody, one of the things that we talk about a lot in everything that we do here at Sash Bear is the idea of validation. So validation is this concept of communicating with somebody in a sense of non-judgment and acceptance, that they have made some outward expression of what they're thinking, of what they're feeling, or even of how they're behaving. There's something that we can respond to. And the way that we respond to that is with non-judgment and with acceptance. And that is what we call validation. And I just want to draw a very clear point that this is very different from offering praise. So when Brittany, mentioned and other people have talked, about a kid who has, reached their personal best, they've achieved a personal best at something. There's a difference between praising the accomplishment and validating what emotion they're feeling about having achieved that personal best. So validation, and there's nothing wrong with praise, but it's not the same as validation. And so validation is the piece that really helps to build connection and helps that person to build their emotional strength. Now, validation is something that has been researched, believe it or not. And one of the pieces of research around validation is the relationship to stress. And I don't need to go into the details of this chart, but I want you to understand that there is a lot of research around this. In this particular study, what they experimented with was exposing people to a simple type of stress, which was to give them some arithmetic problems, not difficult arithmetic problems, but they didn't give them enough time to finish them. And then depending which group they were in the research study, they either validated or invalidated the emotions that were coming up in these people who were unable to get the right answers because they didn't have enough time. And what they discovered is that the people who were being validated really were able to continue, their stress levels went down with the validation, and they were able to go on and continue doing this difficult, at the moment, unrewarding task, this challenge of trying to answer arithmetic questions they could not get right. But their stress level dropped simply because they were validated. On the other hand, the group who were invalidated continued with a very high stress level. So it's really important to notice this connection between validation and stress, because our youth are under a lot of stress and our athletes are under a lot of stress. They put that stress on themselves. And so validation can be a really, really important tool to use to help them. So validation is something in some ways that doesn't naturally come to us easily because we want to praise, we want to correct, we want to make sure that they're keeping their goals in mind. Validation is often not at the top of our minds. So I wonder if any of you have ever said any of these kinds of things. Well, don't worry about it. It's okay, right? It's not such a big deal. Hey, you shouldn't feel that way. All of these things we mean well when we say them. And I'm sure all of us as parents, as coaches, as teachers, right? We say these things all the time to each other, and we mean well when we're saying it, right? We're saying, hey, you don't need to have so much emotion about this thing. You can bring your emotion down and move forward. But a person doesn't necessarily hear it that way. They hear it as what we call invalidation. And so quite often the outcome, and you might recognize this, is that sometimes the youth who you say it to might get defensive. The emotions might escalate. The other person might not want to talk to us anymore. And they tell us, we just don't get what they're going through. We just don't get it. Their stress levels go up and stay up. And that's what the evidence shows from that research study. And in the relationship, we become polarized and we're sort of pushed farther apart. So the alternative is what I'm talking about, validation. So when we're being told about distressing emotions, right? Someone who's frustrated because of a situation that happened in the locker room or on the deck, someone who's frustrated because they didn't get a personal best, even though they medaled at an event. These are challenging situations. And so in those situations, we can try to validate. What that means is to listen without judgment, to communicate acceptance of what they're feeling. Because what they're feeling, even, hey, you won a silver medal, you should be really, really pleased. But mom, I didn't get a personal best. We want to accept that what they're feeling is what they're feeling, right? If they're telling us it's not about winning the medal, but it's about the personal best and the fact they didn't do as well as they'd expected, then we need to take that and accept it and really communicate that we accept that that's the piece that they're concerned about or frustrated about in that moment. And we have to avoid problem solving. So, instead of saying, oh, you'll do better next time, or, hey, why don't you practice harder, or, oh, I'll go buy you whatever that will help you next time. Those kinds of things are solving a problem in the moment that the emotion's being expressed. Really, the focus, we really want to try and focus on validation. So this has just been a little bit of a taste, just the tiniest little taste of what we do. We have, full-length presentations, workshops on this concept of validation in the Family Connections program that I mentioned. It's a 12-week program. We spend 6 hours talking about validation, specifically practicing validation and different tips and techniques. And that program also includes all kinds of other skills that are connected to the concept of validation. So this is a really rich field of learning communication strategies that can help support youth in their mental health. So I just want to close with letting you know some things that you can do to support our work and things that we might be able to do for you. So in terms of supporting our work, it would be really wonderful if there's any possibility that you share our information with your membership so that the family members, the parents, and the coaches within your clubs can learn more about what we do. So we have a newsletter that you can sign up to and forward to your membership, post news items about anything that we're doing in the members area of your website, share our literature, follow and like us on social media, or add the Sash Bear Walk to your club calendar and encourage the youth in your club to volunteer for the walk and to participate in the walk with Sash Bear. All of these wonderful ideas are not my ideas. These are things that the Etobicoke Swim Club already does. And we're so thankful that they are supporting our work in this way and that we're building a relationship with them and with that community. So I invite you to do the same thing through your clubs. The walk happens, as I mentioned, every year. May 28th will be the walk this year in Toronto. And we are always looking for sponsors to help us create a wonderful and really just a really impactful event that can raise awareness around these issues and help families understand better ways that they can communicate. And you can, of course, invite us to be involved in your local club. We would be happy to come do a presentation for your families, for your coaches, for the community, even for the youth, to talk about what they can do and how they can support each other. So we did that for eSwim back in October, I think it was, and it was a really great experience, and we got really good feedback from the people who were there for that presentation. So absolutely, I just want to remind you, this is just a little taste of what it is that we're about, and you can connect with us anytime, and we really would welcome you to reach out to us and find out what more we can do to help in your communities to build more awareness and education around this idea of emotion dysregulation, and how we can help everybody learn more skills to cope in really difficult situations. So thank you all very much for your attention.
Thank you, Doreen, and thank you, Mike and Lynn and Brittany, for being a part of us this evening, but also, delivering and sharing such a great program. We saw in the question, one was, can they help the coaches? Absolutely. You made a great point, Doreen. Contact the Sashbury Foundation, set up clinics. The question was, how long are some of these deliverables? Could be up to 6 hours, you said, but it varies.
Yes, like I like to maybe say something then on the, it's like, yes, like we can work with the club to say if you have half hour or an hour, or we can come like a few times. So, and then really deliver information of what you think is the most important for your community, like for your club, for each club, because maybe each club has a different need. So we can certainly adapt the presentation or the workshop. And then we did, even in October, we did like a relay with the club, right? So then having a fun thing for the kids to be involved in understanding the importance of having a healthy mind and a healthy body. So we're very flexible, and our goal is really to find a way to partners to disseminate the information and to share the information. So this way coaches, staff, and families have more information.
It's wonderful, wonderful. Anything else, Doreen?
No, I'm good. I have put my email address and Lynn's email address into the chat. And somebody asked about the slides. Lynn has already answered. We can certainly provide you with the slides afterwards.
Super. Well, this has been quite enlightening. And I think very, very important. I think as we, because I know this is the second time really gone through the process and listening, and the way you've sort of shifted things in the thinking is pretty interesting. And that was one of the comments I came out with after the Etobicoke one in October was, this is what the coaches need. The coaches need this as much as anyone else for the experience of our swimmers to be what it can be. So really appreciate you making time for us, and so appreciative of all the years you've put into this, and my goodness, it's very touching. So thank you very much.
Thank you. And I just want to say, hoping you'll find us on Bell Let's Talk. We're going to be participating at the Bell Let's Talk tomorrow. So hoping that some of you will hashtag and forward a few things. So thank you, Dean. Thank you, everyone at Swim Ontario. And we're hoping to hear from you and looking to find ways to help you to help your athletes.
Outstanding. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Good night, everyone.
All right, moving along to the next agenda item. I believe Darren's going to do a bit of an introduction for Leanne and talk about talk about the policy update manual, the manual update. Hi, Leanne, how are you? You're good? And Darren, are you speaking?
Yeah, just I'll start it out. So Leslie Ann St. Amour is one of our from Ontario Council from Durant Barristers. And she and I have been working on a club policy and procedure manual, and we're going to give you an update on that. What that is we're putting together a suite of policies and procedures that clubs can use and adopt straight out of the box. This is a no thinking, no wordsmithing, no anything. Just write your name at the top of the policy or the club's name at the top of the policy and post it on your website and you're good to go. So without any further diatribe on my part, I'll pass it over to Leslie Ann to talk about where we're at and what's coming next.
Thanks, Darren. It's great to see everybody. Some folks might recognize me. I was on one of these president's calls. I guess it was just before Christmas or maybe even back in November. And at that point, I was talking about a specific policy, the complaints, appeal, and discipline policy, which I will mention again when I talk a little bit about the toolbox. And so, as Darren said, the intention of this is to provide you all with policies and procedures that you're good to go with, fresh out of the box. Simply fill in the blanks with your name, the name of directors, things like that. And part of the reason we're doing this is, one, being a club president, being on the executive, being on the board, things like that, it's really important for making swimming happen, but it does come with obligations, liabilities, and things like that. We want to make this as simple as possible. And so by providing these policies, we are doing what we can to make the process as smooth as possible and reduce your risk as much as possible, to make serving and volunteering as simple as possible and as easy as possible so that we can all get back to what really matters, which is the swimming part. The toolbox looks at a few different things, and I've kind of grouped them broadly just to give you a sense of what to expect and what to look for. The first part of the toolbox will talk about the governance of your club. As many of you have heard from us at this point, there is a new Ontario Not-for-Profit Corporations Act, which is coming into effect. And that impacts some of the rules around incorporation, around directors, and around governance of not-for-profits, which many of you are as swim clubs. So the new policies will reflect those changes and talk about how to structure your club to ensure that you're meeting all of the rules for both governance in terms of who your directors are, how many, things like that, as well as the financial rules around audits or engagements to review your financial statements. And as well, with the financials, it'll talk about financial management and some best practices in terms of record keeping and how to manage who has access to the money. Next, the toolbox talks a bit about HR, employees, volunteers, and things like that. It'll ensure that you have the right policies in place for if you do have employees, ensure you have policies in place for volunteers, and what to do when there's problems, whether that be problems around selection of volunteers and finding people, or whether it be issues around human resources and HR. As well, it gets into more of the policies of running a club. One of the big ones is the complaint, appeals, and discipline policies. This policy is especially important because it needs to mesh with the policy of Swim Ontario. And this is so that if something happens, if there's a complaint, and it is appealed and it comes to Swim Ontario, the policies need to mesh for the system to run smoothly. And this is to everyone's benefit, both the club, the person making an appeal, or the person who's made a complaint. Because if the policies don't run smoothly together, it makes life harder for everybody to the detriment of the clubs and the sport. So that is one of the policies that is most important you really look at and ensure that your policy lines up with both the recommended policy and Swim Ontario policy. Other examples are things like, sorry, the dinging keeps distracting me a little bit. Other things are like your code of conduct, investigation policies, whether it be policies around screening volunteers, policies around fundraising or travel, confidentiality, all important things that a club needs to think about. And it's best you think about them ahead of time when you design your policy, rather than once something has happened. These are also especially important right now with what's going on with Swim Canada and the fact that we're using some interim measures and we're seeing where maybe things weren't working the best before, or we're seeing maybe where our clubs needed a little bit more support. And so it's a great time as well to revisit your policies, take a look at the toolbox when it comes out in the near future, and ensure that your policies are the best they can be to make sure that your club is running as smoothly as possible. One of the other aspects I want to add is that with the new Not-for-Profit Act, right now you're still in a transitionary period, but that transitionary period only lasts so long. The end of the year into 2024 is when you will be able to get in trouble if you're not meeting its requirements. And so take the time to review your policies once with this toolbox to ensure that you're meeting those requirements, so that your club and yourselves are not getting into any issues around the not-for-profit management of your club. Yeah, it essentially walks you through a variety of different policies, a variety of different requirements. I noticed a couple of questions come in.
Yeah, I can. So will these policies be mandatory or optional, and will they work for both profit and nonprofit clubs? They're intended primarily for not-for-profit clubs, but most of them will work for for-profit clubs. And are they mandatory or optional? At this point, they are not mandatory, but if you're following our policy suite and there are appeals of decisions, as Leslie Ann said, those appeals will go much smoother if Swim Ontario already knows what's been done from a policy and procedure point of view. Go ahead.
And I would just add that for many of the policies around finances, directors, audits, they're based around the required legislation. And so I'd be very reluctant to look at them and consider them necessarily not mandatory. If you are going to go with other options, I would make sure that you're getting legal advice on those options to ensure that you're still in compliance.
And the second question, does employees cover contract workers? That's almost a CRA decision. So in order to be, and I'll let Leslie Ann explain this, but in order to be a, what's called legitimate contract workers, you have to fit into the CRA, the Canadian Revenue Association or agency's definition of what a contract worker is, and meet all of those requirements. So Leslie Ann, I know I'm stepping on your toes here, so please,
okay.
Please jump in.
I'll just add that it also depends in what context you're asking this about employees. For policies around workplace safety, HR, complaints and investigations, a lot of that doesn't matter because it's not coming down to pay and taxes and things like that. Sorry, it's a hard question to answer without a specific scenario. And so I would say, if you're wondering about money, taxes, salary, there is a distinction, but generally speaking, in terms of these policies, there's not going to be a large distinction. And your contract workers will likely still be required to follow your policies unless you provide them an extension, or sorry, an exemption. For folks looking forward to the toolbox, I'm in the final stages of finalizing it along with Darren. So hopefully it'll be coming out to you in the next couple of weeks. And Darren, I'm not sure how you intend to make that accessible, whether it be just on the website, email, or what that would look like.
Yeah, it's going to be on a password protected section of the website, and clubs will get the password to access that section as soon as it's up and posted. The Swimming Canada third-party fiasco that's happened the last few days has put everything on hold as Leslie Ann and I and others were dealing with stuff. So as we as we get sort of back into the swing of things, we anticipate probably within the next, 30 days, we'll have the policy manual toolbox available to clubs.
Yeah. I'm happy to answer any more questions. Darren, if there's anything I didn't touch on you would like me to, I'm happy to, but I'm also just cognizant of it's, almost 8:30, so I don't want to go
Yeah.
longer than necessary.
And the one last thing for those people that joined late, we are recording this, and the recording will be put on our website. So feel free to share it with other members of your club boards and employees and anybody else who might be interested, especially in the Sash Fair section of the presentation.
Absolutely. Okay, well, it doesn't look like there's any other questions coming in for me. So thanks for having me on, Darren, and looking forward to finalizing this with you.
As always, it's a pleasure, and we'll talk tomorrow, I'm sure.
Thanks, Leslie Ann. Thank you very much. And yes, it'll be a helpful tool. And as we go from that, talking about policy and procedure, I think the next agenda item is our club mentoring pilot project. And I may close my camera off just in case, because my internet is a bit choppy. And we'll go through a little bit on the strategic plan. Before that, we have a number of board members that are on the call: Janet Morrison, Leila De Cruz, Ann Bell, Robert Gigi, Tim Barker, and we heard from Andy. I don't think I missed anybody, but that could be a possibility. But it's really good, and a number of staff. And the reason I bring this up, we have Christy, Stu, Karen, Darda, Nicole, Lindsay, and Darren on. I don't think I missed anybody, but I could have. Strategic plan, we do have a strategic plan, is on the website. It is we're in our 2-year review. It's an 8-year plan, and we're in a 2-year review. So part of that was a bit of refinement and a little bit of bringing some language in. We brought some language in around accessibility and the Paralympic pieces, fine-tune those, fine-tuning and adding to the diversity and inclusiveness piece. So it's always a work in process. So just going through this, I won't go through it. You can find it. Next slide there, Nicole. Thanks. This is just the visual. This is one thing that I felt that we needed to do, something that people would be reminded. We do have a strategic plan, Swim Ontario. I remember it's a circle and a triangle, and it's all interwoven from the performance side of things to club support to organizational excellence. And it's a constant wheel with the athlete in mind, but all the other players involved, and we talk about the 3 priorities. Next slide. So it might be hard to read here, but I tried to highlight it in red some of the areas that fit in where I'm going with things that we say we're going to do, basically, in directional goals. And so, we have pieces of that, and I'm not going to get into each one just because I want to get into the heart of the project that we're dealing with. But this is our guiding program. And again, it might be something that you work within your own club around. You talk about the club manual, the policies and procedures, and you need some governance structure, and you need to have a strategic plan, all these things. So hopefully we're leading somewhat by example so that you can work towards that. Next slide. So before we go, club health check. I think I've been talking about this for a while, and I know on the strategic plan, one of the directional goal, it was supposed to take place, I think, in June of 2020, and things got hectic, I guess, with that pandemic. And so we will be putting this out, I think, because of all the things that are going on. And you're going to, you've got registration, you're going to learn about that. You got to learn about the entry process and hosting meets. We're going to just hold off on this club health check. And the idea behind this was just to see where you're at. A lot of time, we really, we see the clubs hosting meets, and we see, clubs getting points on the scoreboard, And we see some swimmers bubbling to the top of their age category, and we see all kinds of stuff like that. But we really don't know sometimes what's going on in the club. And unfortunately, sometimes we don't know what's going on in the club until it becomes a problem. And so part of this is trying to give us a bit of a way forward to understand what is going on. I intentionally had to be a one-pager, but it's going to have, it's a questionnaire that both president and head coach need to sit down and fill out. It won't take much time. You can add your own value to it, but there's some simple questions, some add-ons that you need to do. And here's some example. What's your current financial health of your club? And basically 3 descriptors, very good, managing, and a bit of a struggle. That's sort of the, how you can pinpoint that. Do you have club policies? And this is where, obviously a big interest in this, club policies and procedures in place to address certain membership questions, such as diversity inclusion. Where are you at on that? Where are you at on refunds? Where are you back on your travel policy, and so on and so forth? And, are you able to receive complaints and manage? And so we will also ask, do you need assistance in this area? Because this will help for us focus on what we can do and help. Is there a succession plan for key positions in your club governance structure? How does your club attract and retain officials and volunteers? And these are same topics that we put out there when we had the provincial government grant, the big one that came in the May period. And so it's something that of interest. Next slide. Oh, I'm on next slide. I'm looking at. Okay, the next piece would be the wet side question. So simple question, ratios. What is your current coach to swimmer ratios? And rations, ratios for competitive and pre-competitive. How many consecutive weekends of racing do you have planned in a yearly training plan? We know that took place a lot last year in 21 or in 22, as we were got the floodgates open in April and went hard and fast to get things done. Do you have a plan for the inclusion of athletes with impairments into your programming? And if you haven't noticed or seen what's been going on here with Swim Ontario, thanks to Swimming Canada and the partnership that we have with them, having Darda Sales leading this program and actually making it state of the art. That's probably the best in the country, and probably will be at one point in time best in the world. She's looking at best practices around the world. So there's things like that, and you have a master's program. So I'll get the questions at the end. We'll just keep motoring through. So moving from the health check. The health check will probably be launched out in mid-February. So hopefully everything's settled with your club, with the registration pieces and with swim meets and things like that under the interim process. Hopefully we'll start to see the light shining a bit brighter and you'll be able to get back into the normal way of doing things. But here's where pilot project, and this is something that I felt was going to be really helpful because Swim Ontario, the staff can only do so much. And we know we have some great clubs out there, really good clubs, great leadership at the board level, good leadership on the pool deck. And what we wanted to try and do is come up with somewhat of a plan that would have and it's small, it's a pilot project, trying to go small, try and be successful with it and learn how to make better as we move forward. Ideally, moving from only 3 clubs being mentors, we could look at 10 clubs across the province being mentors with 10 clubs under that takes up our 100 clubs. And so, it could be a really good thing. I've played with some catchy names and stuff like that, and that may not go very far. So I'll probably lean on staff and some board members and others to help get that going. But basically, you can see it from the illustration. We identify a club mentor, and then they would get their house in order and have an agenda and a format to deliver. The clubs that are in the smaller bubbles, they would show an expression of interest and they would sign up for it. We'd then identify or position your club with one of the mentor clubs. And well, a lot of this, we'll just figure some of this out. So you can see, hopefully you get the idea from that. Next slide. So when I was looking for mentoring clubs, the characteristics, really a positive organizational traits. And I believe when I illustrate who they are, you know, some will agree, some will learn. Sound governance and leadership. This is very, very important because we're looking at the business, a lot of the business and operations and sort of the experiential piece from the dry side to the wet side. And so that's really, really important. Engaged in provincial and national programming. Demonstration of growth through stable pathway environments, and there could be other pieces that will fit those characteristics. Next slide. So a little bit more on this, and you know, this is not the only thing, but from a club administration side, looking at best practices. Obviously, Darren's going to be taking a look to make sure they're the governance piece side of it, but their policies and procedures are rock solid. We know one of the clubs had an extensive review and process done over the last couple of years. Stable finance management, recruitment, retention of practices for volunteers, the officials, swimmers, and coaches. I just put down fundraising, but there could be, I know some of the clubs have great team building pieces. You know what? Maybe some of you will add in the Sash Bear Foundation walk to one of your activities, and who knows? Hosting competitions, positive relationships, obviously with your city, municipalities, facility, community. How do you keep those going? Board of directors model, supporting committees, and a key one. We know that every organization is communication. The strategies for all stakeholders, but communication is key. Moving over to the coaching one. Don't let it mislead you by only 4 points there. There's many things that the coaches can deliver, but hopefully it's in I will call it a philosophical way and best practices way. But program model, grassroots to provincial, national. We want clubs to share their pathway of contributing to the national program, whether it's junior or whatever. Do we have a Paralympic program? Do you have a master's program? Looking at things like that. Are you working towards that? Staff model, professional development and training, philosophy for development, and again, communication strategies, very, very important. So we're going to work some of this stuff out. So the next piece would be expression of interest for the mentee clubs. I find that's a bit of a weird term, but anyways, it is what it is. That's why I went to emerge, and maybe that will stick, who knows. Interested clubs to apply to Swim Ontario when we launch this. Club president, head coach must register, be a part of this program. The mentee club will be assigned to a mentor club. We'll do the assigning, and the 3 clubs, they might be of the southern portion of the province, but it doesn't hold back from someone in the northwest or northeast or in the east to be learning from these clubs. And as I said, this is not just to stay with this; it is to grow this, to actually see this evolve to what I believe it can be. And when I say I mean we believe. Letter of understanding between Swim Ontario, the mentor club, and the mentee club will be in place. Next slide. So process and work plan. 3 clubs have been approached. I've approached them. I've looked at them. I've asked some questions outside the, a little bit of a research, I guess, in a way. Right now, I have identified Whitby Swimming, Oakville Aquatic Club, and the Barrie Trojans as the mentor clubs. So we have those 3 clubs in place. We met yesterday, and we're building this out, and we'll go from, build it out and get the format so it's consistent, but also adding, the value added, the experiences and the best practices that each club has. We're introducing it tonight, so we've done well on that, creating expression of interest form in due time, and then we'll get that out there. Work with mentor clubs with a format. We will work with them to create the format that's consistent, that all clubs are receiving similar information. It might be a great vehicle for talking about the additional new pieces to the club manual. We'll send out invitations to the clubs in the end of February. And the idea would be the first meeting session sometime mid-April. So then, you know, on a certain week, might not be the same evening. This is all in play, and we'll be excited to see that happen. Next slide. So ideally 2 meetings per season. We don't need to overdo it, but we just need to allow to have discussions or hopefully stimulate some conversations. So looking at April, and then perhaps in the September, October period. I know September is very busy, but we are aiming to have an in-person conference, an in-person awards evening, and including the Hall of Fame, and an in-person AGM. And that'll be the weekend, I believe, of September 23, 24. So it might be a perfect opportunity. It's like what we did in the old days when clubs would get together and have discussions over lunch. The meeting's done in virtually, and then, as I said, in person. Swim Ontario staff and board of director will be present during these meetings so that we can answer any questions or just observe. And that's just my marketing genius coming out there, but maybe not so much. Lindsay will keep me in line on that. Monthly check-in in between Swim Ontario and then the Club Elevate program, review evaluation in October, is rate the success and determine expansion. So we're quite confident that it will have some very good positive things. Next slide. Coach development. All right, so I'll go back. Is there any questions about, I think there was one. Is there a head coach meeting for Swim Ontario where this information is also shared? I gather that's, I'm trying to think, was that for the Sash Bear or was that for the information I was talking about? Likely the 837, so that might be the information. Your stuff. I like how this person talks my language. Yeah, I mean, we talk with many head coaches, not all, because we can't get them all in a room or on a call, but we have representation at the what they call the SOC, Swim Ontario Coach Committee. We also have a sport development committee, and then we have chit chats around it. We also have a think tank group working on programming. So we will try and get that information out. We'll try and get that information out. So will there be a cost to this? No, no cost. And any other questions before I move on to, or Lindsay will take over? Anyways, a little bit of consideration, but I think I do think we'll have some legs, and we'll develop it to where we believe it'll be a really good return for all clubs to be better businesses per se, but also create a better experience for the swimmers and so on and so forth. So yeah, you've done a terrific job surviving through this pandemic, come out on the other side quite well. Now this is the time to try and help be even that much better, as we've learned. All right, I'm going to turn it over. I think it's Lindsay that's going to talk about this coach development piece.
I just have a quick recap of our Building Fundamentals coach program, where we are allowing one coach per club to take an online swimming 101 course for $100, where it's typically $350. All of the age group clubs were assigned a date for their course, and information was sent to club presidents and head coaches, and they had to apply by January 15th, which has now passed. We've had 60 clubs, age group clubs, apply and be accepted. If your club has not applied, this is the absolute last call to take advantage of that. If you have any questions, send me an email. I need to have your submission in by Thursday at noon. After which, the Masters and OUA clubs will be contacted regarding their date for their course, and they'll have that by Tuesday. Once all the final submissions are in, and if there are any remaining spots, because I know I've had some clubs ask if they could submit for a second coach, I'm going to just send out an email to everyone who is participating to say these are spots that are still available, and they will be on a first come first serve basis. If that's about it, I just wanted to get this last push out there for anyone who was interested in this program and hadn't taken advantage of it yet. And that's about it. if anyone has any questions, either let me know or send me an email and I'll try and help you out.
Thanks, Lindsay. I don't know if there's a question. No, there's a question that came in, I think, regarding the mentor program. But Lindsay and staff have done a tremendous job over the last, I'd say, 18 months to try and bring coaching education to the forefront for our coaches. They had a 301 project to bring in a 201 project to try and get as many coaches educated and certified to their next level. And then this one was one that really trying to help all clubs or most clubs take a full advantage of a fee reduction. And so we've tried to really work at trying to investing in coaching, assist investing in coaching. At the same time, the clubs have a responsibility to make sure that professional development plan is in place. I'll go back before we go. I think we have one more slide. Is that it for you, Lindsay?
Yep, I'm done.
All right, fantastic. Has there been a thought given to having different size clubs as mentors? The realities of larger clubs versus smaller clubs are quite different. Getting advice from successful but similar size clubs would be helpful. Yes, that was thought of. I think I went with what I knew and what I felt would be encouraging. And I do see that as something that we would work towards growing as this becomes a bit more a bit more in line, a bit more alive as we move forward on this. And so, good point. We're not just quite there yet. We're gonna try start off. We'll call it start off small and see if we can expand it out. Before we know it, it'll be October, and there we go. We'll have a new lineup. So there we go. Next thing is provincial programming, and it's just a short slide, I believe. Stu went through a process today with our Southern Ontario coaching committee and walked through many projects that are in place and programming. The good thing is we've returned quite well. Some of it is a bit on the fly because we're realizing we need to try and do this. We're able to do it, so on and so forth. So on the provincial programming, I think there's a picture of the oh my goodness. Oh, there's a bit more to this. Is Stu on the line? Do you want to talk about this, or am I going to do this?
I'm here if you'd like.
Yes, perfect, Stu. This is what I like. I got fewer slides at the beginning and more slides at the end. Good balance. Thanks.
Okay. Before I jump to these upcoming projects, I do wanted to just highlight just a couple of areas that we actually have had quite a busy fall and early part of the winter in terms of programming initiatives. Provincially, we've been able to run 3 camps and two tour teams, one to the Quebec Cup and one out to the Ken Demchuk International Swim Meet for our para athletes. Regionally, we've had 4 regions hold regional camps for a total of 5 camps. The great thing about all these camps regionally is the para component. We've had a great representation on the para side in terms of integration into our camp structures. Regionally, we've had 124 swimmers participate in camps. Provincially, 154 swimmers. Across all platforms, 60 coaches have participated, either as lead coaches, staff coaches, or just attending coaches. So this is a great jump start back into a full provincial program deliverable this season. I want to thank the regional chairs and regional coaches who have worked quite hard to get these initiatives up and running, and who are striving to deliver a few more initiatives before the end of the season. So with regards to upcoming projects, these are projects that we have currently scheduled upcoming. Our next one is February 2nd through the 4th. It's focused on 400 meter and up training. So consideration for selected athletes was given to 400 meter, 800 meter, and 1500 meter freestyle events. The pool sessions will be led by Coach Sean Baker from Markham Aquatic Club, just to work on developing of best practices in distance swimming. And the second session for this initiative will happen in April. So we'll bring the same group of swimmers back with a few additions based on performances through the March and April timeframe. We've got a youth camp May 4th and 5th, focused on 200-meter events. So athletes are picked based off of their 200-meter stroke performances or the 200 IM. And we are looking at sending a group of up to 16 swimmers to the Mel Zajac International Swim Meet with 2 coaches on board as well. Our final initiative is the June 6th to 10th timeframe. I believe 5 to 9 is actually a more accurate date now based on pool availability, and that's an IM breaststroke camp. And we're just finalizing details around that one. But I think if all the ducks fall in a row there, it can be quite an exciting initiative for Ontario Swimming. There's a question in the chat around where these selection criterias are. You can find them on the Swim Ontario website under athletes, under the athlete tab, and you'll see I believe it's tour teams, camps, and there's a competition tab there as well. Or you can email me directly, stu@swimontario.com, or our provincial teams coordinator, Karen Wilson at karen@swimontario.com, and we can help direct you to some of these. What age groups do these camps targeting, depending on the initiative. The 400-meter event, the 400-meter and up training initiative, we're looking at athletes between the ages of 15 and 17, depending on the gender. The youth camp looks at athletes from 13 to 16. And the Mel Zajac tour, as it says there, year of birth 2005 to 2007. And I've noticed Lindsay has put links in the chat to those specific initiatives. More details around these things will be added in the next couple of weeks. We've got some significant planning meetings coming up around provincial programming. And the idea would be to update that information as it becomes available to us. Next slide, please. Or can I do that? Sorry. What I'm showing you here is just a quick snapshot of what is happening in the province outside of the club daily business and club meets. You'll see here the trials events, the Swim Ontario provincial program and competitions, as well as those highlighted initiatives that we're looking at. I will draw your attention to the summer festivals and the Ontario Youth Juniors. As it stands right now, we do not have hosts for those meets. And I believe a communication went out 2 weeks ago with another call for hosts. And at the end of that communication, the statement was made quite clearly that if we do not find a host for these 2 initiatives or 2 competitions, that we will be canceling them. So if you do have interest as a club or a collection of clubs to host one of these meets, or you'd like information about what's required in hosting those, you can certainly reach out to Nicole Perrant at nicole@swimontario.com or Christy Yaremchuk at christy@swimontario.com, and they can assist you with those competitions. That's all I have. Any questions, I'm happy to answer. And as I stated, if you're if you do have any questions in and around programming initiatives or things you see on the website around programming, you can feel free to email me at stu@swimontario.com.
That's great, Stu. I guess there's a little correction on the hosting of a meet. I believe the youth championships are in Etobicoke and the festival is at Markham. So wouldn't want to confuse that. I mean, wrong kids going there. Wouldn't be the right thing. What I want to say is that on some of these camp initiatives, yes, you'll look and there'll be a small number of swimmers in a sense, and it's just trying to maintain a quality camp of sorts and deliverable. But the key thing is that coaches, there's always an open door for coaches to come and attend. And I can tell you that back in my day of learning and everything else, I made every effort to learn from other coaches around the province and around the country. And it's really, really important that one, coaches will feel welcome. Two is that the coaches are supported by the clubs to do so. We've had some initiatives such as our Next Gen program. We had, I think, 11 coaches in under the age of 35 and trying to work towards this idea who have aspirations to be a head coach and run a great, club business on the coaching side of things, and contribute to the national program, at least to the junior national team. But what happened is that some of these coaches have swim meets to go to, and I get it. There's swim meets all the time, but planning is so critical, and education is so critical, and moments of experience is so critical. I think there needs to be a little bit of effort put on the coach's part, definitely on the club part, to make these things happen on the professional development pieces. And so, anyways, that's just an observation that we have. So, good job, Stu. And that pretty much wraps up. Any questions? I'll turn it back over to Andy, as it's his president's info.
Dean, before we get to Andy, there was 2 questions in the chat that I don't think we answered yet.
Okay.
So will there be a Gull Lake open water swim this summer?
Yes.
Okay.
Our plan is to try and have three open water activities. The first one that's on the schedule, the end of June. We're still in negotiations, right, Christy? But hopefully we can get something going. Yes, Gull Lake will be taking place in July, somewhat right after their provincial championships. And then we're co-sharing the Open Water Festival at the Flatwater Center.
Yes, to all 3.
Yeah. So do coaches attend camps if their only if their swimmers are selected, or is it more broadly available?
Broadly available. I mean, once we know, just make it available, make their interest available to Stu, and then we have the details, and then we can work through that. We might have some expectations that just don't drop in and come late and then leave early and everything else, because I understand they have obligations, but sometimes I don't know, some of the names I see on this call tonight, I know that you have professional development in your livelihoods, and that's very important. You have good supporting dollars behind those behind those opportunities. So please take that into the swimming game and help your coaches become a little bit more educated, because a coach attending a camp will spread that word and that information to 20 or 30 or 40 swimmers, more so than the one swimmer that might show up. Yes, it'll help them individually and help a little bit in the training aspect, but educating and giving a coach experience is very, very important.
And then do head coaches know to encourage their assistant coaches to attend these camps?
That's a great question. I would hope so. I would hope so, because as a head coach, I'd want to make sure my coaches are well educated, that they're, but we will make that note. I read the other side of or read between the lines. We'll make that available. I think we have, I'm sure we have over the years.
And then the last question is just dealing around the communication of the training opportunities. Does it only go to the head coaches, or is it communicated to club presidents as well?
I'm gonna let Stu,
We
there's
work-
communication pieces. I'll let Stu answer that.
Yeah, we communicate directly with the head coaches on the athlete selection or athlete identification, and then communicate directly with the families on those identification pieces or selection pieces. We have not traditionally involved the club presidents in that piece, but that's certainly something we can consider.
Okay, I don't see any other questions in the chat, Dean, so.
All right, thanks, Darren, for minding the store on that. Always got your watchful eye on that. Andy, are you still with us?
I am. The host has disabled my camera, so I will just do this via audio. Just very briefly, I want to thank everybody for attending today. I think we've had some really good discussions, and hopefully the information that's been made available is been useful to everybody, all the clubs, both on the administrative side and on the water side as well. So just to say to everybody, again, thank you, to be safe, and I look forward to seeing you on deck, and we'll be doing another one of these meetings in the next quarter. So have a good evening and stay safe. Goodbye, everybody. Good night.
Thanks, everybody.